What up, friends? Robin Black, Stitcher, iTunes, SoundCloud, YouTube. Thank you. Thank you, guys. It's good to be back. Been doing a lot of traveling, and that's been fun, but hard. To be honest, it's a thrill. Please don't, I'm not complaining. I'm grateful, but it's been hard. It's going to be nice to be home and dig in and do a little bit of study and research and share these ideas with you guys. A lot of fights coming up at UFC 226. Elsewhere on the channel, there's on these channels, I've got some Daniel Cormier and Stipe. We're doing more of that in the next couple days. I've got some Francis Ngannou versus Derek Lewis. What did we just chat about last? We just did Holloway Ortega. Yeah, that's probably up already. That's fascinating. They're young and their ability to perform, really perform, and I mean perform the way that jazz, improvisers and perform. That's fascinating. These two guys that we're going to talk about now, Pettis and Michael Chiesa. This one, you're almost seeing age and era affect the way that fighters perform and think. And it's been fascinating me. Like, these guys are not that much older. They're young guys, are probably late 20s, early 30s, the both of them. So they're young, but they're not young like Sergio. They're not young like some of these 19-year-olds and 20-year-olds you see popping up. And how you thought and how you think and how you learned when you were young affects how you think when you fight. And these guys are of that post-George St. Pierre era. Now they change. We all change. There are not that many people who were successful in radio that later went on and worked in TV, or people that were successful in TV that went on and worked in digital media, and that would be the same for all types of technological change, and that's just true for fighting. But these guys change a lot. Because they continue to learn, and what happens and what the best do is they reset their understanding of everything. And the way you do that is by making sure that you never think you're an expert. You don't look down at those kids and like, oh, look at these kids. When I was their age, doesn't matter. They see it differently. The game has changed. People understand it differently. There's analysis and breakdowns and perspectives that were not available. But so these guys come from, and again, they're changing constantly, but the root of who they were was the thing that we still talk about. It's a dated approach. Most fighters don't think this way, including these guys. But as they came up, they segmented their training. So Pettis was like an incredible striker who developed and was brilliant in this particular area of the jiu-jitsu and submission game, in particular off of his back. And why did that make sense? It made sense because I will kick your ass. I won't so much worry about those moments where we'll end up being taken down. I'll welcome them, and I will submit you or sweep you. What's fascinating about that is that's coming around again. That idea of going, wait a second, the guard is an offensive position. The guard, I have four tools in play, and you only have your arms. You can pressure and gain leverage from your legs, but they are outside of my control range. Both my legs and my arms are inside of where your legs are, and I've sectioned them off. So I have 4 tools with which to submit your 2 tools in a multiple of ways: choke your neck, sweep you, elbow you, hurt you from there. Pettis comes from that route. Chiesa as well, although Chiesa would prefer to be on your back, but same thing. Let's strike. And then if and when it gets tough, or if I'll use the striking to access your back. What's the great thing about being on someone's back? I'm looking this way. And I mean, this is some base level stuff, but it's worth thinking about. I'm looking this way, and somebody is on my back. They can do stuff to me, and I can't really do much to them. The primary position. So, of course, that's what this guy's going to look for. He's going to look to try to get to Pettis' back. And then when we go back to compartmentalizing it again, it's like, the old way that we would look at these And this is a very dated way to look at combat. Still done in television, but that's a dated way to express analysis too. Television itself. You probably don't watch TV much, you guys. Everybody we know is watching it less and less. The news seems to be anchoring some people, and some sporting events do. But for the most part, ain't nobody watching much TV. But the way that TV would do it is like, who's a better striker, Pettis or Chiesa? Well, Pettis is a dynamic striker with multiple Taekwondo black belt and has knocked out a lot of people, and his kicks are fantastic, and he's got tight boxing, and then we can show B-roll of him knocking guys out. Chiesa is a dangerous, rangy southpaw. Don't sleep on his striking. But if he's made improvements, maybe he can catch. None of that. The sentences I just said there were old sentences that don't really apply to the way that people really are fighting these days. People are fighting by drawing and trapping and manipulating where you are in space and making you believe you can hit them when they can't hit you, moving your feet, being in different positions, making you chase. These are all the things that are in play. And Pettis is still, in this case, going to be more, if and when he's in at his best, he's going to be more capable. Just the time you put in. Who's a better tennis player when it comes to the great tennis players of the same era? The guy who started at 4 years old or the guy who started at 14? Very often it's the guy who started at 4, right? So, Pettis has that long experience. He learned young, this comfort with the way that he moves. I studied him years ago in person, and I was shocked by how incredibly he moved then. He's been able to transcend our understanding of how to move. And it isn't just jumping off cages and stuff. So Pettis seems to really, really like to be in mirrored stance. Meaning, if I'm orthodox, the mirror of that would be his right hand forward, his left hand back. So he would be southpaw. Chiesa fights often as a southpaw. And I think that's his preferred stance. It seemed to be, and he's done well there. So expect Pettis to be in orthodox. So Chiesa, right hand forward, Pettis, left hand forward. He likes to have that open side. He's so talented. If he's at his best, he can hurt any of these guys. If and when that happens, Chiesa will try to access his back, and it's a nice place to be. Although when we've seen Pettis with, oh man, what's his name? Brazilian guy. Pettis' last, I don't think he made weight at 45. Charles Oliveira. Oliveira, man, that is some crafty shit in the submission and jiu-jitsu and control game, and Pettis handled that really well. Pettis at his best will beat a lot of these guys. Now, having said that, every single time I've ever thought, somebody else was going to look good against Michael Chiesa, Chiesa shocked me. He gets better every fight. He's really in it. He's really feels oddly comfortable when it gets messy and rough and choppy. Fights have textures, right? Pettis' fights are at their best when they're smooth like cream on chrome. This guy's at his best when it's spiny and jagged and sharp and rough and sandpapery. So that's what he has to try to do. Elbows, a little bit, bend the rules a little bit. Make it about grit. Challenge the guy. Talk to him. Kick low. You don't have to target his groin, but target the inside of the leg there. Target the lower leg. Nut up a little bit too, which he does extraordinarily well. That's a tough way to live, man. Aldo and Barao, in their dominant times, one of the keys was always, usually it'd be in the first round, but in the first 7 minutes, there was going to come a time where as they pressured, somebody would pressure back. Or the other guy would start pressuring. And rather, if you were going to go 25 minutes, to deal with it in a really tough way once or twice early, they found was a better investment than letting him move forward, letting the other guy move forward, or letting him stop my pressure. So they'd nut up, and you'd see a couple of heavy exchanges and full commitment, throwing hard, and eventually, usually, the other guy moved back. And that's a Chiesa game. early on in that fight, he's got a nut up, which he does extraordinarily well. You see it in almost every one of his fights. He nuts right up, and then he'll throw with you. And he'll take one or two. But he's big, too. If you've ever seen Michael Chiesa out in the world, it's a big guy. Big, powerful rib cage, powerful pelvis and hips. And, you know, not easy to cut down to that weight, but he pulls it off. Again, that's nutting up. That's tough. Toughness, grit, who these guys are, their genetic makeup. That's as important in some of these guys to some of their successes as how they punch and they kick. And Michael Chiesa is one of these guys. So this is a really cool fight. You know, there's some old school, you know, 2 or 3 sentences of television that are easy. Make it ugly. That one's accurate. You should make it ugly. And Pettis should paint a beautiful picture. And he's tough, too. When they're going, that Oliveira fight was where you were like, he was just like, no fucking way. I'm Anthony Pettis. I'm the best in the world. And you're not, even when you get good moments, it's not going to affect me. And so this is the matchup. Don't bet money on this fight. Don't you dare. Don't be crazy. This is not one to bet money on. If you are betting on Anthony Pettis, it's because you haven't been paying attention to Michael Chiesa in these dogfights. You haven't been paying attention. Easy to forget. Easy to forget these brilliant minutes where you're like, damn, Michael Chiesa can fight. And he'll tough it out. And he'll answer with everything you have, right? Maybe he hasn't talked enough, or maybe some of the ways that we pass information has somehow not done the service of letting you see how good this guy is. He's fucking good. Don't bet on this fight. I tell you not to bet on any fights because of the variables, but don't bet on this one. Don't you dare. But it will be a fun one. This one's gonna be real cool. But a big lesson that Pettis learned, it's something, you know, in some of his ups and downs, and his ups have been brilliant, and his downs are just setbacks. We all need them in life. Is that if everything is going well and something goes backwards slightly, like if there was such a thing, my score versus you, it's like, oh, I'm a 10 and you're a 6. That's great. You have a good moment. You're like, oh shit, we're both 8s. We're still even. Just because I went down and you went up, it might feel like a big sway in momentum, but that's not real. That's not real at all. And Pettis has got really good at having those moments where things shift, not have any meaning to him. All he is in a fight. Anthony Pettis knows how to fight. He was the champion of the world. He knows how to fight. You know, 20 seconds later, a shift is going to change again, and 4 seconds later, it's going to change again. And that being in a state of some amount of uncertainty and some amount of constant change within a fight, well, shit, we all have to do that in life. It's a microcosm of our lives, right? This is going to be a cool fight. Trust me on this one. You're going to love this fight. Trust me. And shout out to my friend Duke Rufus. And thank you for sharing my stuff and giving me such positive feedback on my breakdowns, Coach. I really appreciate it. And much love to all you guys. And Michael Chiesa, I ain't never sleeping on you again. But this will be a good one. All right, thank you. Blackout.